How to make toxic people fear you without becoming toxic. The most powerful way to make toxic people fear you isn't through anger, revenge, or loud confrontation. It's through calm, unshakable strength. When you master emotional control, you become unpredictable to them. Toxic people feed on reactions. They survive on your frustration, your anger, your need to explain yourself. But when you stop feeding that energy, when your calm becomes your armor, they lose access to you. The first rule is simple: don't react, respond. Don't let them see your emotions. Let them meet your silence, your poise, and your refusal to engage. That's when they realize they can't control you anymore. Set boundaries that bite, not bark. You don't need to threaten or raise your voice. Your strength is in consistency. When you say, "I don't tolerate this," and then enforce it by walking away, blocking access, or changing the environment, you train people to understand you mean what you say. Toxic people fear those who follow through. They can manipulate words, but they can't manipulate consistent action. Boundaries are your shield, clear, firm, non-negotiable. They protect your peace and signal that access to you is earned, not given by default. Never let anyone rewrite your story. Toxic people love to twist narratives, to make you doubt your memory, your intentions, or your worth. That's why you must stay anchored in truth. Know who you are. Speak facts calmly, not emotionally. Keep your clarity sharper than their chaos. When you refuse to argue and simply state what is real, you strip away their weapon of confusion. You become someone who cannot be gaslit, and that terrifies anyone who relies on manipulation. Your greatest power is quiet competence. Excel at what you do, keep your focus, and move with purpose. The more grounded, productive, and disciplined you become, the less their tactics work. Toxic people want to see you reactive. They want you off balance. But when your life continues to grow, when you glow with peace and progress, they start to feel small in their chaos. Remember, confidence doesn't require cruelty. You can be kind and still untouchable. And finally, know when to leave. Walking away with dignity is not weakness. It's domination without a word. You don't need a dramatic exit. You don't need to announce your boundaries to the world. Just quietly close the door and let your silence echo. The fear toxic people feel isn't about your presence. It's about your absence. When they realize they no longer have access to your attention, your energy, your reactions, that's when the real power shift happens. So, make them fear losing you, not because you threatened them, but because you became someone who doesn't need to fight for respect. You command it through self-control, clarity, and peace. The goal isn't to become like them. The goal is to rise above them, so high that they can no longer reach you. That's how you make toxic people fear you, without ever becoming toxic yourself. Stop explaining yourself to people who don't deserve an explanation. There comes a point in life when you realize that not everyone deserves access to your energy, your reasoning, or your truth. You owe no one an explanation for your peace, your growth, or your boundaries. The habit of over-explaining yourself is born from a need for validation, a desire to be understood, to be liked, to prove that your intentions were pure. But the truth is, people who want to misunderstand you will always find a way, and those who truly value you won't need an explanation to respect your decisions. Silence becomes your statement. Boundaries become your language. You don't need to justify why you chose peace over chaos, distance over drama, or healing over history. When you start explaining your every move to people who drain you, you give them control over your emotional space. The need to explain becomes a leash they can pull whenever they want you to prove your worth again. But when you learn to stop explaining, you start reclaiming your authority. You begin to understand that your decisions don't need to make sense to anyone else, because they were made for your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, not for public approval. The ones who question your boundaries the most are often the ones who benefited from you not having any. When you finally say, "No," they act confused. When you choose silence, they call you distant. When you stop fixing what they keep breaking, they call you cold. Don't fall into the trap of explaining your boundaries to those who only respect you when you're easy to control. Real strength is quiet. It doesn't need to be understood, it just needs to be maintained. Stop shrinking your peace to fit into people's chaos. Explaining yourself is sometimes disguised as kindness, but often it's fear. Fear of losing approval, fear of being seen as selfish, fear of being misunderstood. But think about it, when you constantly explain yourself, you're trying to control how others see you. You're giving them the power to define your character based on whether they accept your reasons or not. The truth is, you can't control perception. People will see you through the filter of their own wounds, jealousy, or misunderstanding. That's their vision problem, not your communication failure. The more you try to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, the more frustrated and empty you'll feel. Peace comes from learning to let your actions speak. Real maturity is doing what's right without the need to broadcast your reasoning. You can outgrow people quietly. You can set boundaries without announcing them. You can say less and mean more. You can simply stop showing up to arguments that go in circles. Silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It means you no longer waste energy proving what's already true. It means you've chosen self-respect over self-defense. Some people will test your boundaries just to see if you'll stand firm. They'll twist your words, guilt, trip you, or accuse you of being difficult. That's when your silence becomes your greatest weapon. Because when you stop explaining yourself, you teach people that your life is not up for debate. Your choices are not open for negotiation. You are allowed to evolve, to outgrow, to distance yourself. And you don't need a press conference every time you do. The ones meant for your life will understand your silence. The ones not meant for you will complain about it. Either way, your energy stays protected. It's liberating when you realize that your life doesn't need to be understood to be respected. The more you practice self-trust, the less you'll feel the urge to explain yourself. When you trust your intentions, your decisions, and your growth, you don't need others to validate them. You learn to say, "This is what I'm doing," instead of, "Let me explain why I'm doing it." You learn to leave when something feels wrong, even if you can't make everyone comfortable with your choice. You start living for your peace, not their perception. And here's the truth: when you stop explaining yourself, the right people won't be offended, they'll understand. They'll sense your peace, your boundaries, and your strength. They'll see that your silence isn't arrogance, it's alignment. You're not avoiding accountability. You're refusing unnecessary justification. The moment you realize that explaining yourself to the wrong people only feeds their power over you, you begin to move differently. You become more selective, more self-assured, more focused. So stop over-explaining, stop defending. Stop trying to be understood by people who never listened in the first place. You are allowed to walk away from conversations that go nowhere. You are allowed to say no without guilt. You are allowed to choose peace and privacy without needing permission. Some things don't need explanation, they just need action. The best way to show who you are is through the life you build, not the speeches you give. When you stop explaining yourself, you become untouchable. People sense that energy. The energy of someone who knows who they are, who stands on their truth, and who doesn't need validation to keep moving forward. That kind of strength intimidates manipulators, silences gossip, and inspires respect. Remember, your silence isn't empty. It's full of boundaries, growth, and power. Walk with quiet confidence. Let your peace be your loudest answer. They can't control you. When you control your emotions, the moment you learn to control your emotions, you become someone no one can control. Most people don't realize that emotional control isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about mastering them. It's about understanding your reactions before they happen and deciding which emotions deserve your energy and which don't. Toxic people, manipulators, and even well-meaning people sometimes test your emotional limits because the one who controls your emotions controls you. But when you stay calm, steady, and unshaken, you take back every ounce of power that others tried to claim. Your peace becomes your strength, and your silence becomes your strategy. People lose control not because they're weak, but because they haven't yet learned the power of pause. When someone provokes you, disrespects you, or tries to make you angry, they're hoping to pull you into their chaos. They want a reaction, because your reaction feeds their ego. But the moment you choose not to respond impulsively, you starve their control. That's the real power of emotional mastery. It makes manipulators powerless. You can feel anger without becoming it, feel hurt without letting it dictate your behavior, and feel misunderstood without fighting to be seen. That's not detachment, that's discipline. Emotional control is a form of emotional intelligence. It's seeing the game before it's played. You learn to recognize patterns, how certain people push your buttons, how certain words trigger old wounds, how certain situations pull you into overthinking. But instead of reacting, you observe, you breathe, you give yourself a moment to decide whether this situation deserves your peace. And most of the time, it doesn't. You realize you can't stop people from trying to provoke you, but you can stop giving them the satisfaction of seeing you lose your calm. Your calm becomes your crown, a quiet reminder that you've evolved past the level of those who need chaos to feel powerful. Emotional control doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself enough to protect your inner world. When someone tries to guilt, trip you, insult you, or drag you into an argument, you can simply respond with composure. You don't need to prove your point to people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't need to shout to be heard. The louder someone tries to get, the quieter you should become. Because calmness doesn't mean you've lost the argument. It means you've already won it. You've chosen self-respect over emotional exhaustion. When you learn to control your emotions, you start noticing who loses their power around you. Toxic people get frustrated when their words no longer work on you. They'll call you cold, emotionless, or arrogant. Not because you've changed, but because they can no longer manipulate you. Calmness confuses control freaks. They can't operate in silence. They need reaction to thrive. When they don't get it, they're left alone with themselves. And that's what they fear most. Your peace forces them to confront their chaos. That's why emotional control is your quiet revenge. It punishes without cruelty. You see, emotions are energy, and energy is currency. Every time you argue, explain, defend, or overreact, you're spending energy on something that doesn't serve you. Emotional control means budgeting that energy wisely. It means investing it in your growth, your goals, your healing, not in other people's drama. You begin to understand that not every message deserves a reply, not every insult deserves attention, and not every battle deserves your participation. The less you react, the more powerful you become. People will start to notice that nothing seems to shake you. And that's when they begin to respect you, even fear you a little. Control doesn't mean you never feel. It means you feel deeply, but choose wisely. You can still have passion, empathy, and heart, but you channel those emotions into purpose, not reaction. You use anger as fuel, pain as wisdom, and disappointment as redirection. Every emotion can serve you if you let it pass through you instead of being trapped by it. You become emotionally fluent, understanding what your emotions are telling you, but never letting them drive the car. That's the secret. You're in control of the steering wheel now, and once you master this, your energy changes. You stop chasing closure. You stop begging people to understand your worth. You stop explaining yourself to those who thrive on confusion. You move differently, slower, steadier, wiser. People will try to test you, but you'll smile, breathe, and keep your peace. Because peace is power. The one who can remain calm in chaos holds the real authority in any situation. Emotional control doesn't just protect you, it elevates you. It separates you from those who react to everything and aligns you with those who build everything through focus, grace, and self-discipline. Remember this: emotional control isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's knowing that your emotions are valid, but not every emotion deserves a stage. The loudest person in the room isn't the strongest. The calmest one is. The one who can stand in the storm without flinching, who can hear insults without losing focus, who can face betrayal and still move with grace. That person is unstoppable. The more you master your emotions, the fewer people can manipulate you, and the freer you become. So, from now on, stop letting emotions drive you into chaos. Let them guide you into wisdom. The next time someone tries to provoke you, pause, breathe, and remember, they can't control you when you control yourself. Your calm is not weakness, it's your weapon. Your peace is not passivity, it's power. Be the person who moves with grace under pressure, who speaks with intention, and who never lets emotions decide their destiny. Because once you control your emotions, you control your life. When you stay silent, they get scared. Silence is not weakness. It's not avoidance. It's not surrender. Silence, when used with intention, is power. A power that unsettles manipulators, confuses liars, and exposes the truth without you ever having to speak. When you stop arguing, stop over-explaining, and stop reacting, people start to feel something they didn't expect: fear. Not the kind born of intimidation, but the kind born of realization. The realization that they no longer have control over your emotions, your time, or your peace. When you stay silent, you change the power dynamic. You show that you're no longer driven by the need to defend yourself. You show that your peace speaks louder than their chaos ever could. Most people are addicted to noise, constant opinions, explanations, and emotional outbursts. They rely on it to feel in control. So, when you choose silence, you become unpredictable. Your lack of reaction forces them to wonder what you're thinking, what you're planning, and what you'll do next. That's what scares them, the unknown. Silence is a mystery, and mystery is power. It makes people rethink their approach to you. They realize that they can no longer push your buttons or trigger you at will. You've detached from their control, and that's what truly unsettles them. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes from saying nothing. When someone disrespects you, when they lie, when they twist your words, your silence is not agreement, it's elevation. It's your way of saying, "You're not worth my energy." You see, the moment you start defending yourself to toxic people, you've already given them control. Because now, you're reacting on their terms. But when you stay silent, you take back that control. You decide the narrative. Silence says, "I'm not here to prove anything to anyone." And that confidence shakes people who thrive on drama. Silence also reveals truth. The people who were pretending will expose themselves when you stop feeding them your attention. The ones who were gossiping about you will start to panic when they can't read your emotions. The ones who were playing games will start losing because they no longer have a response to manipulate. Silence removes the noise and forces reality to surface. People reveal their intentions quickly when you stop responding. Your silence becomes the mirror that shows them exactly who they are. When you stay silent, you teach others that your peace is not up for negotiation. You don't need to argue to make a point. You don't need to shout to be heard. Your actions, your discipline, and your stillness become your language. The loudest room isn't where power lives, it's where insecurity screams. True power is quiet, it's calm, it's stable, and that's why silence is so intimidating to people who rely on chaos. When you stay composed, you show them that your emotions belong to you, not to their manipulation. People fear silence because it removes their weapon, your reaction. They can't twist your words if you don't give them any. They can't guilt trip you if you don't respond. They can't play victim if you don't engage. Silence starves toxicity. It's like cutting off the oxygen to a fire. It simply dies out. Every time you refuse to respond to provocation, you remind them that they no longer have access to your emotional world. And that's what they fear most, losing access to the power they once had over you. But silence doesn't mean passivity. It's not about suppressing your truth or ignoring reality. It's about choosing strategy over reaction. It's the art of waiting, watching, and responding with precision, not emotion. You can stay silent now and speak later when your words carry more weight. You can walk away instead of explaining your worth. You can choose peace without announcing it. Silence doesn't mean you don't know what to say. It means you've learned that not everyone deserves to hear your voice. The key is learning the difference between silence out of fear and silence out of strength. Silence from fear hides. Silence from strength commands. One is rooted in insecurity, the other in power. When you're silent because you know your value, it's not submission. It's control. It's saying, "I don't need to fight to be seen. My presence speaks for itself." That's why confident people are quiet. They don't chase validation or attention. They already know who they are, and that energy terrifies those who rely on external control. When you master the power of silence, you start moving differently. You stop reacting emotionally. You listen more, speak less, and observe everything. You start noticing who talks too much to cover their insecurity and who stays calm because they already know. You start realizing that the most powerful people aren't the loudest. They're the ones who speak when necessary and stay silent when it's wise. You don't always need to expose people. Sometimes, your silence does it better than any confrontation ever could. In the end, silence is not the absence of communication. It's a different kind of communication. It says, I know my worth. It says, I'm not entertaining nonsense. It says, you can't control me anymore. That's why your silence scares people. It forces them to look inward, to see their manipulation fail, to face their insecurities without your reaction to distract them. Silence becomes your power move, subtle, mature, and unstoppable. So, stay silent when necessary. Speak with intention, not emotion. Don't waste your breath defending your peace to those who thrive on chaos. The moment you realize that not every action deserves a reaction, you step into a higher level of self-mastery. You become untouchable. Because when you stay silent, they don't know your next move. And that's when they start to fear you. Not because you're cruel, but because you're in control. And control, when rooted in peace, is the most powerful thing you can possess. Detach emotionally and watch how everything changes. There comes a moment in your life when you realize that emotional attachment to the wrong people, the wrong situations, and the wrong outcomes is what's been draining your strength. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's not about not caring. It's about caring for yourself enough to stop giving your peace away. Emotional detachment is the ability to stay centered when everything around you tries to pull you into chaos. It's learning to love without losing yourself, to give without being emptied, and to walk away without falling apart. When you master emotional detachment, you stop chasing, overthinking, and overreacting. You stop being ruled by emotions and start being guided by wisdom. That's when everything changes. People often confuse emotional detachment with indifference, but they couldn't be more wrong. Indifference is a lack of feeling. Detachment is emotional discipline. It's the difference between being numb and being in control. Detachment says, I can care deeply, but I don't need to control the outcome. You stop begging people to stay, stop trying to fix what's not yours to fix, and stop giving explanations to those who don't deserve them. You simply allow things to unfold. Because once you detach, you stop fighting for alignment, you start attracting it. You realize that anything that truly belongs to you will never require you to lose your peace to keep it. Emotional detachment gives you freedom, freedom from obsession, freedom from anxiety, and freedom from dependency. When you're attached, every shift in other people's behavior feels personal. Their silence feels like rejection, their approval feels like validation, and your mood rises and falls with how others treat you. But once you detach, you begin to see clearly people's behavior is about them, not you. Their inconsistency no longer shakes your self-worth because you no longer build your value on external opinions. Detachment helps you see things as they are, not as your emotions distort them to be. You stop chasing closure, stop begging for understanding, and start living from a place of calm awareness. Detachment also protects your energy. You stop explaining yourself to people who twist your words. You stop overanalyzing situations that don't need analysis. You stop pouring into relationships that only take. Instead, you redirect that energy inward, into your growth, your goals, and your peace. When you detach, you start to realize how much emotional energy you wasted on things that never deserved it. You stop fighting to be understood, and you start building a life that doesn't need to be explained. That's when your glow changes. That's when people start to notice your silence, your peace, your control, and they'll wonder what happened. What happened is you took your power back. Emotional detachment is not walking away from everything. It's walking away from the need to control everything. It's letting life flow without forcing it. It's saying, if it's meant for me, it will stay. If it's not, it will leave, and I'll still be okay. That level of faith and self-trust is rare. Most people live in fear of losing things, so they cling tighter, argue harder, and stress more. But the irony is that the tighter you cling, the faster things slip away. Detachment allows you to breathe again. It allows love to be love without turning into dependence. It allows relationships to be mutual, not manipulative. And it allows peace to exist, even when people disappoint you. When you detach emotionally, you start noticing how people treat you differently. Manipulators can no longer control you, because their favorite tool, your reaction, is gone. They'll try to provoke you, guilt-trip you, or make you feel responsible for their emotions, but you'll just smile calmly. Because now, you see through it. You've learned that not every cry for attention deserves a response. That not every problem is yours to solve. That not every conflict is worth your peace. And that realization terrifies people who once thrived on your emotional availability. You become untouchable, not because you don't feel, but because you've mastered when and where to feel. The truth is, emotional detachment is a form of healing. It's choosing to respond instead of react. It's choosing to observe instead of absorb. It's choosing peace over drama, faith over fear, and growth over guilt. You'll start to notice that when you stop reacting emotionally, life stops feeling like a constant battlefield. You begin to live with intention, not impulse. You see things for what they are, not what you hoped they would be. You stop being led by your emotions and start leading your emotions. You stop saying, "Why did this happen to me?" and start saying, "What is this teaching me?" That shift changes everything. And here's the beauty. When you detach, what's meant for you flows effortlessly. You attract people who bring calm, not chaos. You attract situations that align, not drain. Detachment makes you magnetic because your peace is unshakable. You no longer chase, beg, or convince. You stand still and let what's true gravitate toward you. You trust that whatever leaves was never meant to stay, and whatever stays was never meant to leave. That kind of peace changes how you walk, talk, and think. It's not arrogance, it's awareness. So learn to detach without closing your heart. Feel everything, but don't be owned by anything. Love deeply, but let go gracefully. Give, but don't lose yourself in the giving. Detachment isn't about walls, it's about balance. It's knowing that peace matters more than presence, that clarity matters more than chaos, and that you don't need to suffer to prove you care. The moment you stop attaching your worth to people, outcomes, or validation, you begin to live from a place of inner freedom. And once you taste that freedom, that deep, grounded calm, you'll never want to go back. Because when you detach emotionally, you finally learn that peace is not something you find. Peace is something you create by letting go. Protect your peace like your life depends on it. Peace is the most expensive and underrated luxury in the world. It's not found in money, attention, or success. It's found in protecting your energy from anything that disturbs your mind, heart, or spirit. When you start valuing your peace, everything changes. You stop chasing what drains you, you stop entertaining what confuses you, and you stop fighting for places that never respected your worth. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It's survival. It's the quiet decision to stop letting chaos live rent free in your mind. It's the understanding that peace is not given, it's created. You build it through boundaries, silence, and discipline. And once you have it, you guard it like it's your lifeline. You'll notice that when you start protecting your peace, people will call you distant. They'll say you've changed, and you have, because peace requires change. It requires walking away from conversations that go nowhere, relationships that take more than they give, and environments that keep you small. You'll begin to see that not everyone around you is meant to go where you're growing. Some people were only comfortable with you when you were exhausted, overgiving, and constantly available. But when you start choosing peace, you become less accessible. Not because you don't care, but because you finally do. You start choosing rest over reaction, solitude over stress, and truth over temporary comfort. Protecting your peace means saying no without guilt. It means setting boundaries that aren't negotiable. It means cutting off access to people who confuse love with control. Too often, we think protecting peace means being nice and keeping things calm. But sometimes, peace requires confrontation. Sometimes peace means walking away mid-conversation, blocking a number, or saying, "I don't accept this energy anymore." Peace is not passive. It's power. It's choosing yourself even when it disappoints others. It's refusing to let your emotional stability be held hostage by other people's chaos. That's what true maturity looks like. Not emotional detachment, but emotional control. Your peace should be your priority, not your afterthought. Because without peace, you can't think clearly, love deeply, or grow consistently. Everything you do suffers when your spirit is restless. Protecting your peace means being intentional with what you consume. The media you watch, the conversations you join, the people you let close. Every energy you allow near you either builds your calm or breaks it. So be selective. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to respond to every opinion about you. You don't have to explain every decision you make. Silence is sometimes the greatest act of self-defense. The more peaceful you become, the more power you hold. Because you're no longer controlled by noise. There's a deep strength in being unbothered. Not because you don't care, but because you've learned where to place your care. Protecting your peace doesn't mean you won't have bad days. It means you don't let bad days define you. It's waking up, feeling your emotions, and still choosing calm over chaos. It's saying, "This doesn't deserve my energy," and walking away. The more you do that, the lighter you feel. The things that used to disturb your spirit won't even get a reaction anymore. You start to realize that protecting your peace is not a one-time act. It's a lifestyle. It's built on daily decisions to choose balance, perspective, and grace over conflict, anxiety, and drama. The most powerful people aren't the loudest, they're the most peaceful. They're the ones who can sit in a storm and remain centered. They don't need to prove a point, defend their image, or fight every battle. They've learned the art of letting go of what's not meant for them, of what they can't control, of what no longer brings growth. Protecting your peace gives you a quiet confidence. It teaches you to respond less and observe more, to speak only when it adds value, to love without losing yourself, and to walk away when something starts to cost your inner calm. Sometimes, protecting your peace means disappointing people. It means not answering every message, not showing up for every event, and not explaining why you need space. That's okay, because peace is sacred. You can't pour into others when your cup is empty. You can't heal in the same place that broke you. Protecting your peace means choosing yourself unapologetically, not because you're selfish, but because you finally understand that self-preservation is not cruelty, it's wisdom. You don't owe everyone access to you. You owe yourself protection from what drains you. As you grow, peace becomes your measure of success, not money, not followers, not validation. Peace. The ability to wake up without anxiety, to go to bed without regret, to be around people who don't make you question your worth. That's real wealth. The peace that comes from boundaries is far more valuable than the comfort that comes from pleasing others. When you protect your peace, you stop living for approval and start living in alignment. You no longer chase energy that doesn't match yours. You no longer beg to be understood. You simply move with quiet assurance that everything meant for you will flow to you when you're at peace within yourself. So, protect your peace like your life depends on it, because it does. Your peace is the foundation of your mental health, your clarity, your happiness, and your strength. Without it, you lose yourself in the noise of the world. With it, you become unstoppable, calm, grounded, and clear. You stop needing to prove your worth. You stop fighting for space in people's lives. You stop explaining your silence. You just live, peacefully, powerfully, intentionally. That's when life begins to align effortlessly. That's when you truly start to grow. Because peace isn't the reward at the end of the battle. Peace is what keeps you strong enough to win it.